Welcome back, everyone, to the 2023 end of year live stream, day 3. Most likely going to be our final part today. We're wrapping it up with our final 20 shots of my top 50 that will be in the collection, as well as the remainder honorable mentions. So this will be kind of more of the anticipation of which ones I have selected. But as I mentioned yesterday, this isn't an actual countdown ranking. Beg my pardon. It's just all the other 50 shots just all kind of go in equally, as well as the honorable mention. But I just kind of thought that having a top 50 with these honorable mentions creates a nice kind of structure to the podcast, to the fucking... Did it again! It's called a live stream, not a podcast, because I'm not really putting this up on an audiovisual medium, but I guess you could maybe make it a podcast, but then it's all visual, you know? Like, it's not really any point just listening to this if you're not gonna look at the images, which is kind of the hope for this, you know? I mean, I can talk up someone as much as possible, but, you know, if there's kind of the images to show, then kind of does a half job, you know. So yeah, if you are watching, make sure to, you know, give the images a tiny glance, and then feel free to continue with whatever you're doing while listening to this. Because at the end of the day, it's just me talking, and sometimes, you know, if you're switched on and focusing on one thing, it get pretty boring. So good to keep busy, good to keep doing some multitask and something, but I do appreciate if we all take a second to look at the images, just because they're really good. And, you know, I've heard from some people yesterday that they've discovered some new photographers based off this podcast, which I'm going to call it a podcast because it's so much easier to say, fuck it. So much easier off this. They've been able to, you know, look at new works and be inspired, and people getting messages from each other, complimenting their work. So it's good to see that that's happening. It's pretty much the intent of this thing, was to just kind of grow around a community of people to meet and discover new artists and new creators, as well as kind of, you know, giving people my reason why I enjoy them, you know. So yeah, so I reckon we haven't got a big audience right now, but that is okay, because it's better to just kind of go ahead with it, and, you know, people will come and go, and then of course it will be recorded for later viewing. I will also, after this is completed, I'll make a kind of full video for this whole thing, so I'll make it like combine all 3 parts, and then I will do timestamps so that any photographers mentioned can easily just find their image, or if they want to see someone else's image with my take, they'll be able to find it. But bear with me, because I am quite busy for the next couple of days, so I won't have much time to do it, but it will happen. And yeah, so I think without further ado, we will get started on our final. Sorry, I'm just readjusting my mic. The final part of our review. So, without further ado, we will start with Australian photojournalist Matthew Abbott. Now, I did mention as well that some images aren't from 2023, they might be a few years before, but for me, as a kind of place in the spot, is just when it comes down to I saw it in 2023. So this one I saw early this year, and Matt had quite a series of images during our big bushfires that occurred a couple of years back, just kind of right when COVID was hitting. And Matt had a lot of very striking images from the bushfires, and I think there's one with a kangaroo with a huge blaze behind it, which was the one that kind of went everywhere. I think this one went pretty viral as well, but I like this one the most. I think this one has the most kind of drama and the most kind of context of the devastation that occurred during our bushfires. He calls this one Melted Car from the Black Summer. And basically, yeah, it was just this melted car that just happened to kind of sink into the ground based off just pure the heat of the fires, and how, you know, the metal just kind of just melted down onto the floor and kind of almost became its own liquid state, which is insane, as we see through the strings of oil or the metal that is leaking out from the car. And Matt's shot it in such a unique way where it kind of like these streaks of metal just kind of come out like cobwebs, and they feel very aggressive and a very kind of tragic sense of it's like this car has died, and it's just kind of pathetically like just spilled its blood all over the ground, but it's just like still really beautiful with how it's kind of all the points of the streaks have just kind of come out in their own form. Like each streak has like its own stem, and it kind of sinks in with the trees in the background. It's almost like nature and human-made objects kind of coercing together that have both died from this natural disaster. And yeah, so in like with context, he shot this at Conjola Park, where lots of houses burnt down, and Matt has done a very just great coverage of this tragedy, shooting it almost like it's in the apocalypse. And I am actually very excited because I am doing a workshop with Matt and Andrew Quilty in February in Sydney. So that will be a very exciting place to really get to ask questions about his whole experience doing this, as well as his photojournalism career. So excellent job, Matt. Love the image. Phil Penman. I mentioned him yesterday. He was in Melbourne a few months ago, just doing. I think he did a workshop, but I know they presented his work at the Leica store, and that's where I discovered him. And this image is kind of the one that kind of most people see. This is the one that has the big, it's blown up, and a lot of interviews with Phil use this image as kind of the thumbnail, and it shows like it's an incredible shot from New York. Phil is originally from New York, I believe, and so he's lived. He worked as a paparazzi for about 15 years, so he's been quite accustomed to the city and the streets, and he shoots in a unique way. He shoots with a telephoto lens with his street, which, as mentioned yesterday, it's not quite my style. I don't usually like to shoot that tight, but Phil shoots it in a really great way where he's making the most out of the limitations of a deep focal length, and then he's got such an affinity for like noir, like harsh contrast, black and white, moody clouds, like very, very atmospheric images. And this one is like the embodiment of his kind of portfolio. I think it's just a really fantastic capture of this. I don't even know what's happened here. I think it might be like something caught fire underground and the smoke has just come up, but then, you know, getting that is good and all, but just having a subject in the middle or someone doing something that adds to that kind of scene, it just elevates it to another level of just greatness. And so perfect capture of the guy or the girl in the umbrella, and just how the tones are so beautifully contrasted with, you know, these incredibly deep blacks and then this kind of fading grey from the clouds, which just creates a very complex kind of texture of its black and white imagery. And so I love this image. It kind of reminds me a bit of Trent Park's shot, where the dude is also kind of like, it's not smoke, I believe it's like water vapor from the fountains in Sydney, and he just kind of like comes in through it and the sun hits him. But this one's got more of just that moody noir-esque qualities to it, which I really love. Dylan Marriott, he is a Ted's camera employee. I met him through Ted's when I bought some gear. Super lovely guy, really great salesperson. He was very, very friendly and approachable with everything that he was kind of trying to sell to me. And so whenever I come back to Ted's, I'm always just giving Dylan a quick hello and checking up on him and stuff. And I follow most people that I kind of interact with at like camera shops, because at the end of the day they still work in the industry and they make quality work. And as we see here with Dylan's shot here, very interesting, fantastical kind of whimsy, experimental kind of photography. And this is one of these images where I'm just curious, like, what's going on here and how he shot this. It kind of just, it's like so layered with different elements of kind of like a graphic image, not graphic as in violent, but graphic like graphic design, where there's just all these different like textures and different add-ons to where we're looking at and stuff. And it can be, I can imagine it in maybe in like a shot in a studio, or shot it in an exterior where he's added these certain leaves and flowers to it. But it's also just the way he's lit it and the way that he's just kind of roughed it up with these streaks of white in the center here. And then, he's got like a very dominant color palette with its like bluish purple tint, but then he's got some little streaks of green and yellow, and these whites just kind of really blow out, but it creates separation with all the different layers of the frame. He hasn't really got much detail of what his image is kind of conceptually about, but I'm okay with that because it's just really good to look at, and it really evokes this kind of mood of like a fantastical kind of environment. And I just like how this kind of highlights kind of just really come out in this center here. It kind of feels like there's like this like omnipresent, elemental being that's behind here, kind of creating this kind of ambient light all around it. And then just this white hotspot here kind of just doesn't really match this, but that adds to its kind of experimental surrealness to it. So yeah, it's a really pretty image, Dylan. Keen to see you at Ted's whenever I need more stuff, but yeah. And then this is the second last one of our section of the 50 images. This is Sonny Whitten. Sonny I met him as a camera assistant on a shoot last year, and yeah, he's brilliant AC, but he's also a brilliant photographer. He has a very great eye for street and kind of finding the little incongruities in life, the in-between moments, as some people say. And he also shoots, his photos are quite poetic, like with how he kind of contextualizes them and places them along each other. Like if you look at his Instagram, a lot of these images, especially from this series, they kind of like, these images kind of like overlap with each other when you slide through, which to some it can be distracting, and it kind of separate the images into this one thing that might be a bit more like, oh, I want to just look at one. But Sonny does a really good job, because it kind of just like creates this story and this sequence that you're with, and it makes you kind of more immersed into this setting or whatever he's interested in. And this one really sticks out to me because it's just got a lot of like story and history to what I'm looking at. He shot it in an abandoned building. I forget where he shot it. I think he mentions it. In Cooper Petty, I believe. I don't know if that's an actual place or if that's just his title for it. Maybe it's the latter. But they're just even though there's no one in this frame, it just reeks of life. Like there's life everywhere, and it's like got so many like stories and kind of situations in this image of like what went on the day before or the night before he took this photo. It might have been accumulation of multiple nights or multiple people coming and visit, but just having these boxes of beer cases, I think there's a word for it, but whatever, just with all the 24 packs of beers, and they're all ripped and open. Some are spilt and flattened, so it's quite incredible to see all these beer boxes that, one of them would serve a whole party, but there's like 50 of them, and they're all kind of in this one room. So you kind of wonder, like, was this room the beer storage place, or were they all just like having a beer to themselves? And then I'm kind of wondering, like, are all these damages to the walls and that light that's half dangling, I'm just like, did they just kind of cause all this based off their drunken rampage and whatnot? And yeah, it's just, and the colors really work for it because it's just got such an even blend of the different colored boxes with its reds and greens, and they're just so evenly spread out. And yeah, thank you, Sarah, for the comment on the workshop. I'm very excited. Should be a really good time with him. Hopefully, I'll get a lot out of it. But yeah, so with just how the colors work and this yellow tone, and it feels very Aussie, like the way it's shot. I'm presumably on film. It has this kind of like retro 70s Australian outback vibe with everything that I'm capturing in this frame. And yeah, it's just a really great shot. I just really like how there's lots of detail in just what I'm looking at rather than it just kind of telling me like what's going on. Because, you know, if you had people on the floor there that were drunk, it's very obvious like what's going on. But the fact that we don't see anyone and we just see like the aftermath is what kind of creates the interesting frame to me. So good job, Sonny. Dimpy Balwida, he is from, I believe he's from India. Let me just double check because I'm trying to get the information right with my shout outs. At the end of the day, you're shouting out people you don't want to. Yeah, so he's from London and India, Mumbai. Now, Dimpy is just really impressive with composition, as we see in this one. And the most impressive thing is that he shoots this on his phone, on his iPhone. And that's just like super inspiring because, you know, people have this kind of agenda that you can only shoot proper photos on a digital camera or whatnot, or a film camera. But as we can see with Dimpy's work, that is not the case. Dimpy's really utilizing the format to its advantage and looking for scenes that really elevate the kind of the context of what we're looking at. And he generally shoots quite low angle, very low angle, like almost like God's Eye but in reverse. So it's kind of gives me questions of like how he's actually getting these shots, whether he's like actually lying down on the floor to get it. But then that's also just like a new kind of tactic of street, because lying on the floor really puts you in everyone's kind of eye line, and therefore to get a genuine shot of authenticity where they're not noticing you, that'd be really tricky. So maybe he has some sort of, you know, affiliation with the subjects and kind of hanging tight to get certain shots. And, you know, just with this one in particular, with all these like dragonflies, I believe, or I think they're birds maybe. They're a bit big for dragonflies, like moths. They're really quite big for anything else other than birds. So I'm not sure. Maybe they are birds. But either way, like maybe he kind of just hung tight with this guy feeding this horse, or giving this horse a drag. He's got a drag, but I think it's just like framed in a way where it looks like the horse is about to smoke, which just makes it even better. Like that's just like an extra element to the frame that's even cooler. But you got this great just formation of the birds and him there in the edge of the frame. You know, it's very experimental composition, but it's way more interesting than, you know, traditional like right in the middle of like putting stuff of importance in the center of frame. You know, having stuff to the edge of frame is really. It's really creative and it's really interesting when you're looking at it, and there's just like a lot of dimensionality to it. Like it feels very three-dimensional with all these background elements going off and the foreground elements. So yeah, I really recommend checking out Dimpy's work. It's super cool, super like different to what you usually expect from iPhone photography, and it's black and white. Sick. Alright, so now we're in our first honorable mention section. We have Gina Polfar. She is a fashion photographer from I think she's from Melbourne actually. She does like kind of more colourful, like pop art kind of portrait photography, and this one really sticks out. I really love it. It's just a very interesting scene and creative direction with what's going on. She's really kind of utilizing these different kind of concepts of fashion and kind of flipping it on its head, literally, by having our pants represent the whole outfit, as well as kind of creating this interesting formation of a hybrid, like, humanoid body. And it's just very kind of, it's quirky, but it's like got this kind of eerie sense of like surrealness to it as well, even though it's brightly lit and it's kind of giving this like jolly vibe. It just feels kind of off in this like eerie sense, that like very alien. And then just coupled with her grading with her ocean and the backdrop, really complements the subject's colors, especially the green and these purples here. And yeah, I just think it's a really creative way of just kind of showing some more like different types of portrait photography. And yeah, I really love it a lot. And Gina's got a lot of other great stuff on her Instagram, which I highly recommend that you check out. Louise Delacruz, she's from, God, I'm really bad today with my sources. I do have a lot of notes from a lot of photographers, so I'm always just trying to get the best. Oh yeah, actually, I'm just trying to remember this. I had struggled to grab her Instagram last time I sorted this out. Here we go. There we go. Yeah, she's from Minjin in Australia. So she's a commercial and lifestyle photographer, and similar to like Jack Davidson, she shoots her work very kind of like in a visceral way, where it's kind of it's very purposefully abstract and gritty in its in aesthetic. This one's kind of like a bit more kind of toned down in its like gritty nature, and it's definitely going for the more surrealist abstract type of works. And yeah, I really like how she's used the like double exposure flash aspect, because it really does create a whole new world of body and gestures when you kind of combine them together. And yeah, I mean, like, I don't know how much like choreography or prep she had to kind of instruct with her model to get this kind of like patterns, because it does look like she's like thought it out and kind of done like a storyboard or something of how we want these hands to kind of connect together, because especially the top of the frame, like they're all very perfectly lined up, and in a good way, like not like perfectly as in like it's not like you know, there's nothing creative about it. It's a very creative shot. And yeah, I just love how the hands in the center of the frame kind of like go over each other, and then they expand outward with all these limbs and whatnot. And then the bottom of the frame, it kind of gives us this human element to the back, and like showing like who we're actually meant to be looking at with our subject. And yeah, I'm a big fan of it. Kind of reminds me a bit of the Buddha. Is it Ganesh or is it? It might be something else, but I forget what it was. But it's like that god that has all the 8 arms and flicking through, but it's got a very feminist qualities to it, which I really love about it. Carla Valentino, she works at Leica. I met her, just kind of like walking about and just kind of doing these like Leica photo walks that they host once a month, which have been really great. There'll be a few other mentions of some other photographers from Leica on this list, but Carla works at the Chatty Shop, and yeah, she's lovely. She's a really good, person to talk to about photography, and she does really good stuff with what she enjoys with. She studies film. She just finished a grad film, which was really great. Like the production design is actually really awesome, and I was really sicked out with kind of how she got to shoot it, etc. And Carla's a big fan of Formula One, I believe. I think it's Formula One, and she came to the F1 race earlier this year in Melbourne, and security were a bit shit, and they didn't really get to kind of hold back people climbing the fences. So this is Carla being in a really good spot and getting people climbing over the fence. And as with Dimpy's shot, just the low angle composition makes it much more interesting to look at than a traditional head-on shot where you know, it's very obvious what we're looking at, but this one's got this kind of like, it's kind of, what's the word for it, but, I'm just at a mental blank right now. It's just a strange shot. Like it's just a strange kind of thing of what we're looking at, and it kind of reminds me a lot of like, you know, when they climb the Berlin Wall, and it feels very liberating, even though, you know, what they're doing could be quite dangerous for, you know, the drivers, etc. But there is this feeling of liberation to this. They're not really liberating much. I think they're just kind of taking advantage of them being able to do what they're doing, but the Carla shot it in a way that has this feeling of that, and yeah, I do like it a lot. It's a good shot, Carla. Kane Panic. I actually don't know Kane's last name. Sorry, Kane, but Kane actually was. He has helped me. Him and his mate helped me do a shoot early this year, and it was the one with the motorbike and my mates who dressed up as like a bride and a groom, and that one it did really well, and I was really proud of that shot. And Kane and his mate, I'm blanking on his name, apologies, but him and Kane, they were really great at, you know, helping me get the shot. They were driving the car on the opposite side of the bikes while I stuck out the window and took the photo, which was like very dangerous, but we got a shot that was really good, and we're all really proud of, and it wouldn't have been done without Kane and his mate. So yeah, and so Kane also does quite a lot of real estate photography as well, so his portfolio isn't quite full of like other works. I mean, it's not full of real estate, sorry, so it's kind of like more of his personal stuff. And I like this one. This one's really good. It's a really great shot of this car that's just kind of like, it almost looks like it's sleeping in these fields. It's like an odd kind of place to park, in the sense of like, where are we in this spot, and why is this area got so much grass when, you know, on the outside it looks very kind of industrial, and I generally associate this kind of place with just like the concrete asphalt as our ground. But this one's got really luscious grass to it, and then we have this nice little wagon that's kind of camped out, and so I'm kind of getting this feeling of that, like maybe it's like a sort of romantic thing of a couple kind of, you know, having a nice spot to, you know, just chill while there's, you know, graffiti hanging about, you know. Don't know what it might be implying. I don't know if it's Kane's car or not, or if he just found it, but if he did find it, it's a good find. And yeah, it's good image. I do think Kane is a very wonderful person, and please forgive me, my other assistant, because you deactivated your Instagram, and so I can't even find you anymore. I'm sorry. I'm sure I'll get a message from Kane, just to remind me who it is, but I do very much appreciate him. Josh Gleason. Josh is from my uni, PSC. He is a year above. He just finished his second year, which was cool to see, because I saw all their work at the end of the year expo. And Josh has got, his project was about kind of masculinity as a queer representative. His series, I haven't been able to really, I'm a bit struggled on remembering exactly the concept of what Josh was going for. I'm sure he'll bring it up to me when I share this, just so I can get that extra context, so I don't want to like misinform anyone about what this project is. But outside of it, it's still a really great image. It's just like, it's so uniquely lit that, you know, it kind of has such a kind of ominous dread to its like subject, and it's subtle, but it feels very body horror. It's like very Cronenberg-esque with its type of mise en scene, and the way we have our subjects being kind of almost mutilated for the subject that he's trying to explore. Kind of gives me a lot of like The Thing aesthetics to it, with how the body just kind of mutates into a abnormal form through the manipulation of actual human like genetics and bodies, etc. And so yeah, I really like this. It's really well lit. I really enjoy how like not much is revealed, however we can see that there is something fucked up going off, and it's very tonally creepy, and so I really like it. I like a good creepy image, Josh, so well done on that. This is Josh Robinson. He's a documentarian photographer. This was shot in Rwanda. Like with Josh's shot, I'm not too familiar with kind of the subject of this image, so I don't want to misinform anyone on what it's about. But just as its image on its own, similar to Josh, it's just a really great, powerful shot with its utilization of its portraiture subject and kind of the subject that the background that we're kind of witnessing here. I really like how the textures of all these different buildings kind of resonate against our subject in regards to colour and tone. It's a very washed out kind of yellow grey colour palette, and then we have this kind of, it's still kind of muted, but it sticks out a lot better with our red shirt that he's wearing, and so our eyes naturally draw to him. But everything else in the frame is still really gorgeous to look at because we just have such a variety of shapes and patterns with the floor and the roof and the sky, etc. So yeah, I don't have much on saying this one just because I'm not too educated on what's the context of this image, but I really do like it, Josh, and you should be very happy with a lot of your work because it's great. Michaela Artone, she's from PSC as well. She's in my year level. This was her mid-year assignment, I believe, which was like a documentary project. Sorry. And Michaela, for a while, has had like a relationship with Sunny, who has a disability of kind of impairment, and so Michaela's kind of a support worker and comes to visit Sunny quite regularly to just kind of like, you know, help him with his day-to-day after school, just to kind of like, you know, have some company and get him through some stuff and whatnot. And then Michaela decided to document his process quite regularly for this project, and so, you know, it was really good to kind of watch her evolve the series into what it became, based off just, you know, frequent visits and, you know, going to see kind of the little incongruities that Sunny does that kind of makes the story whole. Like, for example, he would always like wave goodbye to the bus driver that drops him off from school. He has all these kind of like repetitions that Michaela notices, so she kind of added that into her photo series. And this one was the photo that I loved most because it kind of showed a lot of Sunny, but without showing too much, you know. It still left it kind of ambiguous, but also we kind of see the kind of emotion state of him. He was very kind of positive, jolly person to see, and the waving aspect of it like kind of does reinforce his patterns of doing the waving, etc. And I just really like his glance. Like, his glance is really it's just a very poignant kind of look that she's grabbing, and just the use of the reflection in the mirror as well. It's just kind of adds a bit of like, you're able to get the context of like what he's looking at and where he's at as well. Like, we can see that he's in his house, and then also we can see where he's like looking at, like he's outside, that's outside, etc. So yeah, it's really laid shot. Really like it. It's good. And I believe Michaela, she won like an award for it at CCP when she posted it. So well deserved in that world. Yeah, it was great. It was a great series, and yeah, hopefully she continues the work because yeah, she clearly has a passion for Sunny's life, and yeah, I like it a lot. Blind Eyes. Blind Eyes is a street photographer from Melbourne. He's got like a strong repertoire of this like kind of black and white aesthetics that seems to be quite you know, like well loved kind of genre that he's always exploring. He's a very passionate street photographer. Like, he really does love to similarly promote and share other people's work. He does have a collective. I think it's like All About Street, I believe. I'll just double check that. Don't want to not people follow his street page. Sorry. I think it's All About Street. Everything Street. Sorry, it's everything.street.photography. So that's run by Blind Eyes. He also did like a black and white collective, which I don't remember the name of that one, but everything about Stray is definitely a lot more active on Instagram. So he always just shares pictures, and he's very supportive with the work that I post. And yeah, he does quite a lot of cool projects, and he's always out and about looking for stuff and tips and tricks. This one is a bit different to what he generally posts, because he generally posts quite urban type photography, but this one is a bit of a detour from what we usually see, but it's still equally as strong. I think it's just a really great find of this leaf that's got these drops on. It's um, yeah, it's definitely just a bit different from him, but it's kind of kind of got this sense of vulnerability to it, but also like an appreciation for more the natural side of photography. And because it is kind of out of his like portfolio, that's a bit different to his others, it stands out more for me a lot. And I just like how rich the textures of the leaf is compared to the water droplets, and everything about just like the blacks and the whites is striking to me. So I really do like this one. I think Blind Eye should definitely keep up doing this kind of stuff as well, his street, because he's got a lot of like talent to do really good stuff. Marcella Lahuka, I think, yeah. Marcella's also from uni. She's also in my year level, PSE. She's an international student, believe from Poland. She is just like honestly like the sweetest, nicest person in our course for sure. Like everything she says is just so positive and just full of life and energy, and she's just got a really great like attitude to photography, and yeah, she really wants to like kind of make the most out of it, and I really love that. And so yeah, so she's super cool. This work was from her end of years, mid-year one as well. Sorry, Marcella, I forget which era of the year this was from, but basically she did shoot this kind of series of a friend, I think it's Rosako, in it just kind of like for reflections. I'm not going to go into detail with the series because I can't quite remember exactly what it was all about, but I do know that she kind of got influenced off like very vintage type photography, where she kind of had all these like added elements of paper rust and kind of smudges and blur, etc., to create this kind of timeless photo, and she did a really great job of doing that. She just has a really good affinity to kind of create a certain mood based off the lighting and based off kind of how she does her post work. And people could generally fall into kind of this kind of post as like gimmicky, or it just doesn't look convincing. But I do remember when Marcella showed it to everyone, we were all kind of like just questioning like, oh, how did you like what did you print this on, and how did you get like these textures and stuff? And she said it was just all through like Photoshop, and it's just subtle enough to not be noticeable, but it's like it's subtle enough where we notice it, but it's not invading the image. The core is the subject, and the way her expression kind of reveals this kind of uncertainness to what she's thinking, or like this kind of concern. That's how I'm interpreting it, but people can interpret every way they want. But with my lack of remembrance of Marcella's like synopsis and stuff, I can't quite kind of interpret the exact meaning of the expression. But yeah, either way, it's a great shot, and I really love Marcella as just a person. She's really cool. Francesca Millhard, or Gigi Shoots. Another one from uni. We got a few unis today, but these people at uni are fucking great. Like, they're really talented. Like, if I could, I would give everyone a shout on this, but at the end of the day, we've got so many to get through, and I hope to kind of get people up for next year or throughout the year, because everyone's got really quality shit. But Frances is she's coming into my year level next year. She and some other guys, Adrian and Erin, Felix, Aiden, it's Aiden, apologies, Aiden. They've come in to the second year because they've done like an accelerated, which is just insane, because they've just basically nut fucked all their subjects in 6 months, and now like the next thing's like they're going straight back into second year, so They're really good, really hustled kids for sure, and students. So I'm really admiring just like that. Fran is a really fascinating photographer because she shoots a lot of kind of like pop, Y2K kind of fashion photography, and so like lots of her work is very kind of out there fashion. Vibe magazine, it's editorial, etc. And this one in particular is just a really fascinating piece because it's almost feels like it's like a classical painting, you know, from the Renaissance or some kind of Baroque movement shot that we got, but she's put everything in this like really modern feminist uh, aesthetic, and I just think it reveals a lot about kind of, you know, the female kind of community. I'm not a female, I don't know exactly what that means, but it has just a lot of feminist kind of iconography that I can quite back up and relate to and see and whatnot, and it just has a lot of kind of strong, you know, vibes to it that I really love, and it's really well composed. Just the composition makes it feel like this painting. It makes it feel like we have like a lot of dimension to everything, and just everyone has a certain expression, which it's not hard to. That would be very hard to direct. Like that's a challenge because it's not only just doing one person to direct. You know, she's got 5 people to sort out, and then have to compose it as well. So, you know, I'm assuming it took quite a bit of time to kind of rehearse like what each character is kind of like representing and how they want to kind of address the this kind of story and whatnot. Uh, and so I think she's done a really fantastic job with it, and it just looks really beautiful. You know, it's got the sexy quality to it, which is definitely like I think something that's kind of intentional. And yeah, I think it's a great shot. I think it kind of diverts against like this male gaze because we have our subject in the foreground looking at us, and generally, from what I've kind of read about, it's like when females look into the lens of a camera, usually they're just being portrayed as someone who's kind of immobile or used purely as like a sexual gaze for the male spectator, and that usually arrives from what's behind her or what's around her, which is generally like, you know, a masculine man doing the life of like heroic shit and whatnot, and then the wife just sits there naked looking into the lens because she's submitted to her husband or whatnot. And what I really like about this one is that it's like got a similar kind of approach, but all we have in the background is other females doing other stuff, and I think it just kind of enforces this feeling that like, you know, this is a woman's life and this is my life, and I don't care like if you admire it or not, this is what the reality is. And so like it has this really strong feminist message to me that I really love about it. So yeah, it's a really good shot, Fran, and I'm really keen to see more of your work next year. Dan Shaw. Dan is from Lycra. He is also from Chatty. He comes along to our photo walks as well. Dan has been a great help in kind of giving me like good insights on certain like stuff to look out for at Lycra, and you know, he's very supportive with other people's work, etc. He's got a great kind of visual eye for certain types of genres of street, like photojournalism, abstract, etc. This one I like a lot because it kind of deviates from what he traditionally does, which is more like digital photography. This one's on film, I believe. Let me just check which one it was. Yeah, so this was with a black and white, and he used a Wetzlar lens, which is really great. Like, shit's cool. Like a Wetzlar lens. Oh wait, hang on. No, I'm getting this wrong. I'm so sorry, Dan. No. It's Wetzlar's the place in Germany where Leica's made. No, I was getting confused with a Balzer. A Balzer lens. Balzer lens is like a really quirky lens to use. But this one, it just like, I don't even know. He's in Germany. He's there to, I'm assuming, to have some kind of like tour with the factory involved with Leica. But you know, it's cool to see that Dan's like gone out to just explore a bit of the country area, and this hut is just so fun. Like it's like Hagrid's hut. It's like Shrek. It feels like I'm going to like, you know, a what's the like a Grimm Brothers world where, you know, there'll be a witch that's just like lurking in there, you know. So it's a really great find from Dan, and the black and white just creates a further kind of sense of mysticism to what I'm looking at. And it's like blurry, but I think that works because it kind of like older daguerreotype kind of shots were that. And so, you know, I could imagine this shot, if someone told me the shot was from like the 1910s or 20s, I would buy it totally because of the qualities and the architecture of the image. So yeah, I really like it, Dan. It's a really cool shot, and you know, it makes me just want to go to Germany because you don't see this shit in Melbourne where like how small is it? Like it looks like the bloody Shire where just like the door's normal, but like the fuck? Like look at that window. Look how low it is. You'd have to like sit down to look out of it. I don't know. I'd love to get more context of this place, but yeah, good shot, Dan. And then we have Ben Greensdale Stanton. Oh fuck, Ben, I fucked you again. I'll correct you when I share it on the Instagram. Because I've been stiffing Ben off all this whole thing. Because this shot I thought was done by Alex Koppel, but it wasn't. It was shot by Ben. Because Ben hit me up when I posted it, and he's like, that's not my shot. And I was like, oh wait, it's not? Because Alex did an escalator shot, and I thought those two kind of worked back to back. Turns out it was actually from Ben, because I was wondering like where was Ben's shot in my archive, because I was like looking for it, because I was like, I've got Alex covered, but then Ben isn't around, and I'm just like, oh, it'll just turn up. I just probably haven't checked harder. And so thank God he texted me, because I would have just missed him completely, and that would have been a cut for Ben, because you know he's been a great supporter of the street world, and you know he's very supportive with me and inspirational, etc. And so so I just wanted to make sure to give him a proper shout without accidentally using his image on someone else's work. But yeah, so I've got that one, which I explained last time. I really love how I'm not sure what kind of angle I'm supposed to be. The subject's like running up the stairs, but it's so like horizontal that it doesn't even make sense to me in the sense of like spatial logic, but then it clearly does, but it's like good because I'm like kind of just wondering what's going on. And then we have like the lines kind of going opposite his like trajectory. And then this other shot with this bird, it's got a vibe of just like, it feels like a dream. It feels like this like daydream that I'm going through, where you know everything just feels a bit kind of like we're in this fantasy land that, even though the seagull's very familiar to society, it just has this like, for me it just feels like it's much bigger than it actually is. Like I'm just kind of projecting it as if it's like, you know, a kilometer away, and it's like this huge dragon just like flying over the building. And so I think it's just maybe the way the bird's formation kind of works, and then how half its wing is cut out, it makes me feel like it's bigger than it actually is. I'm not sure if that was kind of what he was going for, but just the way the composition adds to that kind of like, you're looking up to see something, it works. And just the lighting's really great on that building. It's like a perfect blend of the blacks and the whites together without any kind of like clipping, etc. So yeah, really like Ben, really great photos. Ben, I apologies that your Insta is Archie's. Spoilers for Archie then, but Ben's Instagram, if you're watching it, and just look up, it's like BG, 1 second, BGS Funk. So if anyone's watching, then they want to look up BGS Funk. That's Ben's Instagram. I think now we're up to the next round of our top. On our top 20. Let's go. All right. Just give me a hot second while I just catch my breath. How many have we got on the chat? Got 3. Who's on our chat? You guys, Tim and Sarah. Is she on our chat? Got a few to get through. We still have 38 images to do, so this will probably go a bit longer, but I'll kind of I'll kind of power through the honorable mentions a bit quicker, just so I have more time on my favorite images, just so we can get through in time when no one kind of like goes to bed. All right, so we're on Jack Davidson. I mentioned him yesterday. Jack shoots portrait work, but in a very creepy, visceral way, very experimental, and I find him very fascinating because he has big name celebrities and he shoots for big editorial fashion magazines, and yet he's given free reign to do this wacky creative shit that I really appreciate. And this one is my favorite from his, I believe it's Tilda Swinton, and just the way he's lit it and the way he's incorporated this really dark, harsh black and white, which I love. Like, I love black and white that's really contrasty and gritty and grainy, and it's got this blur to it, which even further sells this sense of surreal darkness. And then he's just got such a weird light streak on Tilda's face that I have no idea how he got it. Maybe he used some kind of that filter thing where you can put it in front of like a light to create a shape. Forget the name of it. It's something. But yeah, really great shot from Jack, and I really love Tilda's expression. It's got this very creepy, like, doll look to it that it almost makes it feel like it's not even Tilda. It makes it feel like it's like a mannequin of her, but it is her. It is her, and it just having her whole head, it's just a head, like it's just a floating head. So it even just like gives you that, what the hell, like where's her body at? You know, it just kind of adds to this like profile of a dream that I love, you know. And also slay Tilda. Tilda is probably one of my favorite actresses. If you haven't seen Suspiria, I really recommend it because she plays like 5 characters and you don't even know it's her. You should play like a drinking game to try and figure out which characters is Tilda, because her with the makeup and her kind of commitment to each character is just insane. She does it a lot where she's just playing a completely different person. But then it's weird because she won an Oscar, but it's still a really great performance from Michael Clayton, but it is just such a standard kind of role where she's just playing like a corporate executive. And so it really is different from like Tilda's genuine like experimental characters. Oscar bait, maybe. It's not an Oscar bait movie to me. It's actually quite a good movie. But yeah, it was just interesting that Tilda won an Oscar for a film that really doesn't reflect her like kind of acting career. You know, her and like Cate Blanchett are like the two goats of females in the acting world. One's Australian. Next we have Stephen Dupont. Stephen Dupont is a photojournalist. He has done some incredible work from around the world, covering wars in Afghanistan and doing a lot of kind of very interesting stories on the environment. I believe this one's from one of his environmental series. I tried to look up exactly what the series was, but I couldn't quite remember. This was in the Bowness. This one or the other one, there's like a garbage bag in the wind. That was really cool. But this one just has a really great sense of tone and kind of like impending dread of how our industrialization in the world affects our natural wildlife. And it has this kind of dirty, grimy feeling to what is kind of the consequences of our kind of growing industrial world. And it kind of feels like these pelicans are just like, you know, sick and dirty and like they're maybe dying. Like it doesn't, this air that looks in the frame just doesn't look healthy at all for them. And so Stephen's done a really great job of getting this kind of great juxtaposition of the nature and the corporate kind of pollution of our environment. And yeah, it's just a really powerful shot. And there's another one that he did with this garbage bag kind of like flying over this industrial plant. And yeah, I mean, Stephen's got a whole backlog of just incredible shots, and I really recommend watching this doco that he had of him in Afghanistan. And it's a really confronting doco because he's dealing with a situation that was quite like traumatic and devastating in a way. And you know, if he was in a certain place at a certain time, he may not even have been around to, you know, take this kind of photo. So yeah, it's just this kind of like even extra appreciation for that he's still around to take these shots. And yeah, I really would love to meet Stephen and, you know, talk more about his work, because I always love kind of catching up with photojournalists and just kind of hearing about their life and what they do, because it's such an interesting kind of story. You know, they're just out there doing the most like intense things that most people wouldn't want to ever do, but it's so important that they're out there because they're the ones documenting what we see on the news and in the world. And I've had conversations where it's like, why do people want to go to these like torn countries? And it's like, well, we wouldn't know about them if we didn't have people like Stephen going out there and taking photos. So yeah, so really, really awesome photographer. I really love him. He's from Australia as well, which always is extra inspirational. I just really love it when I've seen photographers from Australia that are just producing brilliant works. It just makes you feel more like anyone can do this, you know. Dan Bolt. Dan Bolt's a friend of mine. He's a cinematographer from Melbourne. He's currently out traveling the world right now, which is a shame because I do miss Dan. Him and his mate Darcy, they're you know mostly in Mexico, they're doing film stuff there. But yeah, not so much in Melbourne. But Dan is also a really great photographer. He shoots with his medium format, and I believe this was him in Cuba. And this guy was just some dude who basically he disappeared in his home in the alleys of the old city, and he came back with this moonshine concoction. Oh wait, is this the right one? I think it might be. Let me just double check. Sorry, Dan, if I got the wrong description of who this one was. I think it's right. He did a few other portrait series of people from Cuba and Mexico. Yeah. So this guy's he's like an old guy, and he brewed up a drink, and basically, you know, just it's a powerful image for me because kind of like it shows the culture of Cuba as well as yeah, it's Cuba. It is Cuba. Where is this one from Mexico? I'm so sorry, Dan. Yeah, so this is in Cuba. These photos weren't from like 2023; they're a bit earlier. But yeah, it's just a really lovely shot. It's really utilizing the format of medium format to create this kind of like grand scale to people. That's what I love most about medium format. It really can't be like, you know, contested with digital. Just the way the depth of field kind of creates a way more personal, shallow qualities to it without making it feel like artificial and overly sharp, etc. There's just the perfect amount of softness and the way the colors fall off, and etc. And it's just a really good contrast of this really beautiful blues with his yellow skin tones, and his expression's really powerful. And I love skin. I love when skin forms in this kind of like wrinkled, kind of tethered way, and I think it was just a really great capture from Dan. And it's really, I really appreciate it when people go out internationally and take photos of strangers like out like this. And you know, medium format is a much more kind of you know, slow process than it is with like regular film or digital. So I really do like that Dan's put in a bit more of that kind of patience in getting this portrait, and this guy's like kind of revealing a lot in himself in subtle ways, like the way his arms kind of hold to each other and this kind of slants, etc. And then, you know, just him being comfortable to like wear his shirt out to reveal himself is also quite a powerful image. And yeah, I really like it. Dan, I miss ya. I want you to come back so I can work with you again, and we can just like watch fucking Gaspar Noé films and get high and whatnot. But yeah, whenever you come back, he'll be ready. He's very fluent in Spanish now, so probably have to take a while. He's actually been helping me. I mean, I'm trying to learn a bit of Spanish just for the shits and gigs of it, and Dan and Darcy have given me a bunch of good tips and resources to kind of get started. And that's also Darcy Da Silva. So Darcy Da Silva, feel free to look him up as well. He's also a cinematographer, and he's really great as well. Isabel Liston, she just finished her third year at PSC. I only just saw her work at the grad show like a few weeks ago, and her series was just insane. Like, it was incredible. It was so overtly like anti-religion, and like this isn't meant to be like a bad way of explaining it, but she handcrafted this book that would have honestly made out as like the book from like Seven, where it's just like almost like a serial killer's book, where it's like excerpts from the Bible all cut out, and there's like disturbing imagery involved with it. Like, it feels like a cursed object, but I loved it. I thought it was fucking phenomenal, and it was such a shame that she just made that one book, because I was like, fuck, if she was selling multiple ones of those, I would have bought it in a heartbeat. And so her work around it, very creepy and very like horrific. And I would love to go into detail with the subject, but I haven't got all the details because it was just at the gallery. It wasn't hasn't been like published yet. But her images just evoke such this like feeling of, you know, existential horror, and she's clearly got a passion for that kind of tone. And this image in particular, it freaks me out. It really does. I always get really freaked out when people kind of like cross out the eyes or the faces of an image. Just creates this like dread of like loss of identity and a loss of like humanity, and you know, it's so viscerally cut up, like so sharp with its detail and the rippings and etc. It just doesn't feel good. It feels like it's like someone is trying to eliminate someone out of existence, because you know, at the end of the day, photography kind of immortalizes people. And so when you see photos like this, it kind of violates the concept of photography, because you're essentially now erasing people from history. Once you scratch up faces enough and you just have the body and you don't have any identity of the eyes or the face, this person just becomes like a specter of kind of physical matter, and it doesn't reveal the person anymore. And so it's like almost like a degradation of the soul. Like it feels like you've just completely like put them in this purgatory that they won't ever get out of. So yeah, Isabel, I'm really interested to see what she does next. You know, the stuff is very intense and hardcore, but it's just so creative and so fun to look at. And I'm a big fan of horror. I'm a big fan of just being scared. Like, it takes a lot to be scared, and when images can do that, it's really good. I think it's a really cool kind of way of approaching photography, and I really do like how she just doesn't hold back with what she does. Don't know, I think the grad show's over now, but like if you ever do get a chance to see this book, like I really recommend it. Like definitely like contact her and see if you could like have a look at it and whatnot, because it's so well built and so well done. It's so original, and I really do amend it. So this kind of image represents her whole work as well. Yeah. All right, so now we're back to our honorable mentions. All right, I might just do speed runs of these, not like really fast, but I'll just go a bit quicker, just because we still got 30 images left, and we've been up for an hour and a bit. So I want to kind of make sure everyone's kind of covered. But this is Jordan's work. Jordan also, he works at DigiDirect. He's also a very lovely dude to be with and hang around with. I haven't personally like met him much. He's usually never working when I'm there, which is a shame. But we do keep in chat on Instagram and stuff, and he does some really great like event kind of wedding commercial kind of work, and he's got a very rich kind of like taste for colors and digital photography. This one's a deviation. It's film photography. I believe it's medium format. But similar to like Kane's photo and Matt Abbott's one, like there's just this kind of like humanity to these cars. Like it feels like this car is real, and it feels like this car is something that lives and breathes. And this one just kind of has a lot of history to it. Like it just feels like it's a very kind of got a lot of stories to tell with how it's, you know, how old it looks and kind of like where it's located. And then we have it just like half resting on its wheel, either just because it's run down and abandoned, or you know, it's going for repairs, etc. And we just have the foliage kind of like lurk over the car, and it kind of makes that kind of more like what's the word? It's like when grass kind of goes through. It's like it reminds me of like a Last of Us shot, where it just feels like this has been like around for like 20 years, and it's just kind of like staying there, but it's quite peaceful in its location. But yeah, I really like it. It's really well done. I really love the colors, and I think, you know, Jordan, you know, everyone should look at Jordan's work, especially if you want to get like events done, because I think he's got a really good knack for that. Yuji. So Yuji, I don't have like a specific image because it's not quite like what you expect from digital photography. So Yuji, he does a lot of large format Polaroid photography. So he kind of hangs about areas in the cities, usually around in like Fitzroy area. And all he does is just kind of like asks people, or people just come to him and they just get like an instant portrait. And so Yuji's really fascinating because he's quite an anomaly with other street photographers, because he's very deliberate and it's slow, and he has to be quite precise with how he frames and takes these images and whatnot. And yeah, like he's super generous with his time, and he treats every subject that he takes photos of with just like really with good respect and dignity. And you know, there's like this kind of timeless kind of aesthetic to having a Polaroid come in like just straight away, and then you know, putting it through such a unique body of like image capturing with this large format. It kind of takes you back to, you know, the 1920s, when that was all they had, where if you want a portrait of someone, you'd have to go through this really long, extensive process to get the capture. So yeah, he's kind of like going to like traditional methods of doing it, and you know, it's just a really great way of like kind of getting your work out there, and you know, putting yourself up on the map to kind of meet strangers and get to know people. So yeah, so I really do recommend kind of looking for him when you're out in the city. He sometimes does work at like the State Library. He does it in Fitzroy area. I'd have to ask him which street specifically. I believe it's Johnson Street that he's usually lurking with some guys that he knows. But yeah, super cool. I really do like how he's getting his work out there. But then it's just like a bit harder to get it through like a digital form like me. Oh yeah, and then we have Mujo Media. So this isn't a photography shout. This is a like video photography shout from Archie. So Archie, for his uni, he made a documentary project where he's basically interviewing street photographers similar to Paulie B in New York. But Archie's a really great interviewer, and he's done like 8 interviews now from street photographers, and he basically just kind of just keeps the camera on them, and they just kind of walk around and talk about their processes and stuff. And you know, Archie puts in a lot of good time to edit these images, these videos, and make them entertaining for people. He has a really good like structure of how he does it, and he also, you know, he's got all the uni that he's doing. Like he was at 3rd year, so not only is he got to do uni, he's like trying to spend time making these videos, and they all turn out really great. And so like it's really commendable that he's able to dedicate a lot of his energy to kind of putting other people's work out there, and kind of letting people see what is possible in street. He interviewed me for the first video, and I'm still really happy with it. You know, when I watched it, I was like, I always dread rewatching myself, because I'm always just like scared that what I said or how I do things is like, oh, that does not like reflect me. But everything I was doing, and I probably would still look back at it and not be like, oh, what the fuck, like, what's he doing? Like, what's this like mentality here? So, and I think it just also came down to Archie's editing. Like Archie made sure to just select the best bits and put it in a cohesive video where it's entertaining and people can follow along without it just being too much of a drag, you know. So yeah, big shout out to Mujo Media. I'd love to see more episodes soon, but absolutely no rush, because you're a very busy man, Archie, and you know, you've done a fantastic job with it so far. So definitely recommend watching them. Jesse Gray, and then Jesse is also from Leica. Jesse is actually studying at RMIT in photography. I think he just finished his first or second. I think he was his second year. He works at the Melbourne store, but Jesse is a good friend of mine now. We go out regularly to shoot and hang out, etc. He's got a great sense of humor. He's very funny, and he's also very talented. He's a very adventurous kind of dude. We actually did like a 16 questions thing like a month ago, and he's an adventurer from what I heard. So he loves to go out. He's a very kind of like, he's a very quiet kind of person, but he's still got a very good sense of humor, and you can tell he's got some really great stories to tell. And I do remember Jesse showed me, I don't know if it's from this photo, but he has been doing a series on like skaters. I believe he's like just trying to keep working on it until he thinks it's ready to publish and stuff. He's also doing a series of bees, and he's done one with like studio lighting in like a natural environment. There's one shot that's really cool. But Jesse likes to kind of keep his work kind of to himself a bit, and that's fair enough. Like, you know, you want to kind of hold on to your babies as long as possible until you think it's ready to go out to the world. But, you know, the stuff on Jesse's Instagram is still like really fantastic, and I love this one. Like, this one is such a great shot of someone like just doing a very insane stunt in a skate park. Like, this almost looks like this person's not gonna fucking land well. It doesn't look good, but at the end of the day, Jesse got a great shot of it, and yeah, just like the legs kind of sticking out like that, and the way the shadow like leans down onto the skate park. Really great shot, really well lit. I love just like the outfit and the posture. I just hope the person who was in there didn't stack it too hard, because that doesn't look like it's a good spot. Although I do now see the hand is on there, so maybe the legs might protract back to the bottom. But even so, that's a pretty intense spot. Aaron Turley, another PSC student. I believe they saw their work. Their work was just up at, like, they sometimes PSC just hang up other students' work. I don't believe I ever saw Aaron at uni, because I believe they probably had their work. They graduated before I came, because their work was already up there, which is generally means that they had already graduated. But I do love this shot. It's a really great still life photo. Looks like it would have been really hard to get it right and compose it. I'm not sure how much like post was involved with it, but either way, it's just like really well constructed. I love the textures of the coffee, kind of like inside and outside of the mugs. And then this combination of like this metal table with the nice backdrop there just kind of has this very like classical feeling to it, with a bit of grit. But yeah, it's really good. It looks really great blown up, and so I really dig it. Mitch Fong, good mate of mine. I work with him quite a bit. He does a lot of event and commercial photography. He's very talented at that. He's also a very fantastic runner, very good at like the marathons, etc. And he's helped me out with like how to train for it, even though I failed and didn't really bother, because like I have time to do marathons. I'm too fucking lazy. But the shot is just a different kind of shot from Mitch. I was thinking of selecting some of his advertising photos, but I just like this one just for how the mood is set, and this kind of early morning or late afternoon kind of feeling of the LA kind of quarry vibes, etc. It has this nostalgic tendency of like a different time, and LA has such a unique presence visually. It has such a kind of like magical dream. Maybe it's just because I'm going to like Mulholland Drive as like a reference, but yeah, it's just a quiet shot. It just feels very quiet, and I like these three trees in the background that they kind of almost feel like people, where they're just kind of like watching and observing this quarry. Like they feel like kind of like protectors of this little stream of water that's coming through, and I just like how calm it feels, and how the kind of water just kind of slowly just kind of filters out into this other section of the quarry. So good stuff, Mitch. James Cunningham. James is also a fashion portrait photographer. I've worked with him a few times, and he's a great photographer. He's got a really good sensibility of like just vibes. Like he's got a great vibe. He always likes to go and do some like powerful striking photo work, and I believe this one's from Champion, and this is just a very incredible kind of combination of set design, model kind of performance, camera angle, and also just like atmosphere. There's such a like rich sense of kind of sport and passion to the craft of like basketball, and I can just imagine this being blown up. It's like a huge billboard representing the Champion brand, and yeah, I'm really curious of how he got this, because the set looks like it's upside down. He's jumping like that, which it kind of almost looks like he's hung up by like wires or something, just because he feels like he's flying, and the way his arms aren't really going into, like they're not heading into the basket yet. And his whole like body physique, how the muscles are just so well tensed and creating this contrast of his skin tone with these bright blue, red and white background tiles. So yeah, I really love it. And there's also like this harsh light that's coming in through to the basketball hoop, and it looks like natural light, but I'm not sure. It could be studio. I would love to talk to James about how he got this, because it's a really cool shot. It feels very feels like it's from like Inception in the way it's kind of composed and structured. Lily May. Lily May is also from uni. She did a bachelor with me at the start of the year, first half, but then she got to do the masters just because she's had previous experience in photography, because she's like got a good portfolio of her work, and I just like these. I like her photos that she got at the ice rink. So she took photos of. Oh, beg your pardon. Back. Being all crooked. What team was it? Oh, Lily might be able to help me out on this one. Sorry, Lily. But she shot like this Melbourne ice skating competition, and she was like the head photographer for it, which was really cool to see. Like, you know, getting to have the opportunity to shoot things like this. And yeah, I like this shot. It's dramatic. It's got, you know, a good sense of like what the sport's all about, and I like how we have our subjects kind of in this flow state that ice hockey entails. And you know, I fucking would die to be like, I would be so scared to be an ice hockey player. Like, just the fucking blades, like, you know, it's terrifying. It's so scary. But yeah, really great shot, Lily. Romy, we have another PSC student doing a lot of PSC today. I think it's just like, get them all out, you know. But honestly, I shuffled all these images around. These were all like pretty much non-curated in the sense of how it's organized. So I think the randomized shuffler just fucked me a bit. But you know, it's good to have the PSC kind of like lineup. Yeah, so this one from Romy, she's got a very good eye for like creative conceptual ideas for photography. This one is like a composition from her subject, one of her subjects from this year, and I love it. Like, I love how she's blended these human portraits with the kind of flowers of her still life, which is like really cool to see. It's really seamless, especially this one, really great. I forget exactly what Romy was conceptually going for in the sense of like the scene in itself, but visually wise, it's just a really like gorgeous use of Photoshop and technical aspects. She's done a lot of other cool projects as well. I believe I selected one of her photos early on with that intention of like, oh, I'm only going to do 2023 photos. But some of her work from last year was really fantastic. She like took street photos from people kind of at night, kind of similar to Sophie Cow's work, or was it Sophie Cow? Sophie Howarth's work, where she kind of got shots of people from inside their homes outside at night. Sounds a bit off, but Romy did a good job at doing it, make it look like it was proper legit and whatnot. And yeah, and she's a great documentary worker. She's done work for like more like underground kind of clubs and communities. And yeah, she's a really lovely person to hang out with at uni. She's a great actress. She just got back from New York. So she's like a triple threat. Like, she's super cool in the arts. And I'm really looking forward to see what her end of year project is. But yeah, lovely work, Romy. Sammy, another third year, no, fourth. I think he did his third year before I got to uni. And then this photo did really well, got into like lens culture. It popped off in a lot of competitions. And this kind of photo is one of the series that kind of explores the Victorian taxidermy fashion. So Sammy's kind of likes to kind of collect kind of, you know, roadkill and kind of more of this kind of dead animal quality of objects. And then, but he's also kind of like incorporating it into his portraiture work. And I believe he's finding like taxidermy aspects and dressing his people with them. Really cool series. I really like how he's kind of shot it and how we have our subjects like presented in such a kind of ambivalent kind of atmosphere and aesthetic. It's just a really good series, and I really love how he's incorporated taxidermy into his work that usually most people would kind of stay clear from, or people would be a bit shy to kind of explore. But because Sammy is committed to that kind of subject matter, he really does put it all out, and I really do love what he made from it. And I think that Lens Culture award was well deserved. Samantha Mary. I'm not too familiar with knowing Samantha. Just double check that. Oh, I'm not sure where she's from. I think she's from Melbourne. Yeah, she's from Melbourne. She's from Melbourne. The series is kind of just about her friends and kind of like getting through a bit of a dark time in her life, and yeah, I just really love how just so vibrant it feels, and just this kind of raw kind of emotion with her friend, kind of feeling like, light at the end of the tunnel, and how we kind of have this like affinity for our friends and the people around us, and it's got this kind of soulful qualities to it, which I really like. It feels very magical, fantastical. Really good work, Samantha. Mackenzie Mazur. She's friends with a friend of mine, Emily. We did a shoot recently, and Emily does a lot of like performance, like dancing. She's freaking incredible with how she like moves her body. Super interesting. Like it's like Exorcist, but in a very like tasteful way. But yeah, she was really fun to work with, and she worked with Mackenzie beforehand, and these images that she produced were really good, like really pretty and atmospheric. It like felt like I was watching, like it looks like the lighthouse, the way it's all like kind of the light kind of glazes over through the lens and creates this like aberrated glow to the subject. And because Emily's got such a great place to distort her body, it just further sells this like kind of uncanny, nightmarish, purgatory-esque aesthetic. And her choice of location is really great. Just being in this ocean further kind of reminds me of the lighthouse and how isolating it felt. And yeah, I just think it's a great combination. And just the way like we see the legs, the bottom of the leg of the body kind of feels like it's her arm, and it's like now she like almost doesn't even have like a head here. It's like she's headless, and so it's kind of like this combination of like we can see that she's kind of curved down, but then also this could also imply that like she's headless and this is like her arm. So yeah, great concept, Mackenzie, and I really hope you do more with Emily, because you two have a really great like similarities. Jonathan Norrell, because of Aurora, he also was from PSC. He did, he finished the year after I came, and actually Jonathan was like the first person I really got to like ask questions about the course, because I was still kind of curious if it was worth going to uni. And I do remember when I went and did like my interview, the first thing I saw was Jonathan's work, and it was just like fucking stunning, like so well done. Like he did this really great shoot with this model on a mountain, like a snowy mountain, and there's just so much drama to the outfit. He's got a very great relationship with a costume designer. I forget her name, beg my pardon, but she's really cool. And Jonathan's got such a creative eye for, interesting portraiture work. This one in particular I love a lot. Like, I don't know how he's done this. I don't know. Like, that's the beauty of these great shots, is like, I don't know, and I kind of don't want to know, because it's so like him, and it's so his thing, that if I found out, I just wouldn't want to run the risk of trying to just imitate it, What's that noise? Anyway, I'll just be back. Sorry guys, 1 second. It's alright, I wasn't getting swatted. There's some kid just outside, just like, he's got a tennis ball and he's just banging, he's just hitting it on my wall, like outside. So that's really annoying, but at least it's not someone swatting me or some shit. But yeah, so Jonathan's shot of this, just really great. You know, it's got such, like, it feels like it has such a kind of like, well thought out historical and artistic kind of research into it, and that's really impressive to see when you're doing these works. Like he puts in that extra effort to research certain subjects and then incorporate it into his work. He's done some really cool other, I think, actually, yeah. Because I loved his work so much, I bought his end of year book, and like this is just like a perfect example of like the kind of work that you see from him. It's from Bellinona, and you just see his outfits are just like so cool, you know. And this is all while he was doing his like last year at uni, which is one that I really like. That it had like the, so this one, it's like this. This stuff, like so cool. Like he did so much, and he made this book in such a great like this one. Yeah, it's just really impressive work that Jonathan's done. Some stuff here so I don't wreck my bookshelf. And you know, he does such a diverse body of work, but then also Jonathan's been really lovely. He helped me kind of give me context of kind of what to look out for at uni and tips and tricks, etc. And he's been very lovely with like feedback with my work as well. So Jonathan definitely is just like a really great photographer and definitely deserves his spot on this list. Callum Sim, next up. Callum's a good mate of mine. Callum does quite a bit of like real estate photography, but he's also got a very great eye for fashion and street, especially in film. He loves his film. And this is my mate Charlie. Charlie and I have done some projects together, and then but then Callum just came and shot some promo work for him in a studio. And when Callum showed me these photos, I was just like, fuck, bro, like these are good, like fucking so well lit, and just how the haze just kind of adds so much kind of layering to the to Charlie. And yeah, I don't know, I always look at it and I'm like, fuck yeah, like that is a good shot. And I really like Charlie's like emotion to it, his heart, like hand to his heart, and the way his head kind of perfectly lines with the lighting. So it's a great shot, you know, it's beautiful, beautifully framed, it's very dramatic, and yeah, just a really great utilization of a studio environment and making the most out of film photography. Super solid job, Cal. Archie, number 8. Archie, this was shot in Thailand, I think, and I love the shot. Archie is a very diverse photographer. He does a lot of different types of styles and work. He does a lot of street work, but you know, he's doing all these like, you know, interviews and, you know, building film. He has his own film stock called Archie's, or is it Archie's, or is it? So hang on, I've got it in my fridge. Let me double check. Yeah, so he has Archie's film. So he builds his own film. So like, he does a lot, Archie. But on this photo, I really love it. It's just like, it reminds me a lot of that end shot in Fight Club, where Ed Norton and Helena Bonham Carter kind of watch in the skyline as all these buildings fall apart. So, you know, I'm getting a good sense of this atmosphere of like two lovers kind of looking at the world through an abstract lens, and has this kind of post 2000s atmosphere to it, even though I'm not even sure what they're looking at in this image. Like, I don't know if it's like art installation, but super well composed. Love the colors. I love this green. It's just perfectly dystopian and futurism incorporated together. And just how the floor is so shiny and reflects the shadows in such a strong way, plus with this like yellow streak coming in between their feet. Solid work, Archie. I love the shot. I'd love to find out where it is. And yeah, definitely watches Mujo Media once again. Number 7 is Tajet Ho Halloran. She is from Australia. I did bring her up on the... Oh, sorry. I brought it up on the previous day she did it for like a environmental kind of commissioned work. This one is her kind of just her like photo series called The Quarry, where she's taking photos of people who kind of swim about in this quarry. Don't remember where it was, but it's in Australia. And yeah, it was just a really beautiful series of portraits that she did. This one got into the National Gallery, well deserved. I love it. It's just so perfectly framed, and you know, it just brings you this whole kind of culture of youth that's not really seen very often in photography, unless you go back like a few years beforehand when it was a bit more common. But it seems like photographers these days kind of shy away from this kind of type of photography, because you know, they get kind of angsty about this whole kind of like taking photos of kids and having these kind of consensual questions. But Tajet has a really great affinity to kind of build this relationship with these people who come and swim for the summer, and reveal like their backstory and their lives behind it. And this one in particular I really like. I believe the story for this guy was so they were basically a family from Singapore. Oh wait, no. They weren't from Singapore. They were just... The caption says a family from Singapore, stoned teenagers eating takeaway pizza. I think she's probably just talking about I think she just kind of covered the whole story in itself there. So, but yeah, it's really great to look at. I fucking love her kind of, her color grading and the way she's kind of made these greens look so like, ethereal and earthy. And it's just like, it pops out, but not in a, overindulgent way. So yeah, great stuff from Tajet. Number 6 is Wayne Buckner. Wayne is a street photographer from Melbourne. Wayne is also a chef. He was in MasterChef, which is how I kind of like, I got to know him just as he was doing that. And this is definitely one of Wayne's best shots for sure this year. I love it. It's called The Commuter. He got this at Flinders Street, just on that bridge when it was really foggy. And yeah, he just got a really great subject in the frame, and it's like just so minimal and simple, but you know, it just has such character and such beautiful composition and texture to what we're seeing, and perfect subject to choose, you know, like just to have this one lone person on a bridge that's usually got lots and lots of people walking about it. It's great timing, and his legs just perfectly stretched from each end of these block seats as well. So like, you know, it's just like a really great minimalist aesthetic to it, and I think Wayne should be really proud of this shot because it's definitely his banger, and you know, his awards that he got for it, very well deserved. So love you, Wayne, and keep killing it. Alright, so now we got our final round of our honorable mentions. So we are going to wrap up soon, so we're going to bust out these honorable mentions, and then we'll get to our final 5 very soon. So I reckon we'll just keep going and move to our final honorable mention. So first up is Battlecat or Scott. He is a street photographer in Melbourne. I met him and Archie actually just like on the street once while I was doing stuff, and then we just like chatted and I hung out with them, and then I found out Archie went to my uni and was like, oh shit, like fuck, that's cool. And then yeah, so Battlecat's been really great to like introduce me to more people in the street and photography world. He's got a very kind of raw style with how he shoots. He likes to shoot very kind of up close, flash, film, doesn't hold back, etc. Kind of gets like really in there, which I really love about him. He always kind of loves his city photography, so he's always out and about shooting there, and he's got a really great, affinity for people and communities, etc. I really do like this shot of his. I believe this from last year, but I'm just being a bit cheeky and just sneaking this one in because I do like it. It's got a very kind of Larry Clark, Tulsa kids vibe where it feels like this is from like the 70s where, kids were a bit more outgoing and they kind of did more just like promiscuous things that, most kids would just be on their phones or they would be like not doing anything like sociable with their friends. And I just love this one, how it just shows like a real kind of connection of friendship. And the fact that they're kissing as well is like, it becomes something more. It becomes something a bit more of like this beautiful kind of relationship that most people look over with friends, because when people associate like kissing, they always think it's like romantic or sexual. But for this, especially with just how like it feels like they're skaters, the way their outfits and their haircuts provide it, it's like it really just shows like a more genuine connection of friendship and love for each other. And of course with her friend next to them, kind of like being an extra element of this friendship group where they feel so comfortable with each other. And I really like how Battlecat has just gotten close to it and getting like really in there, because like at the end of the day, when you shoot up close like this, it just becomes like a lot more emotional and poignant. So yeah, great stuff, Battlecat, and I do love to see you more. I'd love to see you more. So yeah, good stuff. Jane Fitzgerald. Jane does a lot of kind of like landscape, kind of minimal, isolating kind of photography in the landscape world. So she likes to go in to get like big wide shots of like beaches and buildings, etc. This is definitely probably my favorite from hers, just based off how like these arches of, I believe this is in Paddington, maybe? Don't quote me on that because I haven't been to London in a while, but this is a really cool shot. I just really think that the composition is excellent, and it feels very organically kind of complementary with everything that's going on. Just the way the arches kind of blend in with the lines from this double-decker bus. I mean, you always see the front of a double-decker bus, but you never really look at the back of it. And like looking at the back of it, it is just really unique. It is a very uniquely designed kind of piece of vehicle engineering and design. And I just think that she chose to shoot the back of it in like the best spot, because it feels like such an addition to these arches and the road and everything. Like it feels like an optical illusion in a way. Like there's just something hypnotic about it that you don't really get with kind of regular landscape photography. It feels very kind of like, most of them feel very like sharp and diagonal and leading lines, etc. But this one's kind of unique because it's very, it's very got a lot of curves to it, and it's got a very like kind of wobbly texture to it. So this is definitely my favorite from Jane's this year, and she's also extremely lovely on Instagram. So yeah, really great stuff, and yeah, definitely keen to see more stuff from you. Olga Fedorova. Olga is from. Where's Olga from? Ooh. I'm not sure where she's from, but that doesn't matter because Olga is kind of like she's kind of like a digital artist as well as like an abstract photographer. But this shot just came up on like my suggested feed once, and I fucking loved it. I thought it was sick. Like, it's so weird, and what, like, huh? Like, what's happening here, you know? I genuinely feel like I'm in a bloody Twin Peaks episode. Just, it's so weird that we got this horse that, like, looks like a unicorn kind of just running in this little apartment, and then some subject who's, like, motion blurred out like Jacob's Ladder with this odd spotlight in the background. Like, it generally feels like that episode in The Simpsons that was parodying Twin Peaks, where, like, the horse is dancing with the main character from the show. And yeah, just so creepy, but also so, like, kind of like whimsically beautiful to it. I love this one, and yeah, I just think you should check out more of her work, because if you are looking for really good surrealist inspiration, she's definitely the person to kind of look out for. Then we have Todd Hiddo. I've brought him up a few times in this pod, just because there's been a few shots by, like, Matt and Jesse, or Goofy Images, where basically they shoot outside a house where what we see is, like, the lights on for one of the interiors, and there is this, like, this kind of atmosphere and story of, like, oh, what goes on inside these houses, and kind of how it creates this tone of mystery, but also kind of eerie dread, kind of like this liminal space technique that makes you feel uneven and uneasy. Todd kind of, his images are very kind of quiet in that sense, though. He likes to shoot in a lot of, like, cold environments that feel very kind of insular, which works in his palettes. And then he's also very colourful. He does a lot of post-processing with his colours, and he mentions in his book that, you know, he kind of just doesn't really give a shit about the realism part. He just kind of likes to blend colours that work in complementary with each other. And this one in particular is, like, a good example of that. Like, he's selecting very specific tones of green and blue and orange and brown and blue into this kind of quasi painting of a kind of suburban household that reveals a lot without revealing anything. I think there's just, like, this light that's on creates so much of a human presence that reveals something that we can all kind of come to a conclusion based off the kind of house and the location it's at, and just how we have such an affinity for, like, interiors and looking through a window and kind of imagining what goes on. And Todd is, like, the master of it. He had a show a few months ago at CCP that had all this work, and just blown up at large scale is just, like, super impressive. Like, there's lots of detail. I think he shoots on large format or medium format, one of them, which really accentuates the detail of his locations, etc. I was going to bring something else up, but now I've forgotten. But yeah, super cool. We do have another shot coming up that is similar to this as well, and I love it because of a similar reason, but there's a bit of extra kind of layering to it that I'll bring up when it comes to it. Tatsui Suzuki from Japan, similar to, like, Daido Moriyama. He likes to shoot very kind of visceral, black and white, up close kind of photography, predominantly street in Tokyo. I think he shoots predominantly with his wife, Nat. Who is it? It's Nat Shuo. I believe that's his wife, or it's definitely his muse, because she's in a lot of his photos. And yeah, he really does love to incorporate just this kind of raw, sharp, contrasty black and white, and he always picks locations that are kind of very abstract and uniquely weird, similar to Daido. Kind of feels like he's a bit of a protege to him. Probably definitely taken a lot of, like, books in his, like, kind of methodology and whatnot. But yeah, his work's really great, fantastic, beautiful stuff. And I do really think that, like, getting to open up with ways you shoot subjects in the way that, like, Tatsui does is something that I always kind of look for when I'm shooting, just because I think just going out of your bubble and doing something a bit off is always a bit more exciting than it is just, like, getting a standard portrait shot that, you know, can look pretty, but I'd love to utilize the form a bit more, you know, and use the medium of photography to really amplify the emotion of an image. Ian Weldon's up next. Ian Weldon is, like, he's technically a wedding photographer, but he's also, like, a documentarian. he basically shoots weddings in a way that's like all the in between moments where he just avoids shooting weddings where it's typical like telephoto lens, you know, glamour, etc. Like where it's all predicted like meditated portraiture work that you'd see in wedding photos, but instead he shoots these things where kind of chaotic moments happen, and then when there's like, you know, incongruities of people's behavior. But I think that becomes a lot more human, and like just it adds such dimension to people than it is with like, oh, go here and let's take a photo, and then go here and let's do that. And I get the business of it, and I get like why people would want these photos for their, you know, the albums and their household and stuff. But I think when you look at wedding photos or you look at memories in general, more people are interested in seeing these kind of images where crazy stuff has happened, or oh my god, I can't believe my mum did this on her wedding day, or the et cetera, et cetera. And I think just Ian's kind of like honesty to these photos, they're really great, and it's something that I aspire to be when I'm a journalist, or if, when I do my photography, is like I want to look for the real genuine moments that people do rather than things that I have kind of that I control. I don't want to assert my authority in the photography. I want to kind of just be like invisible and get moments that most people overlook, and then people can look back on and reflect and be like, oh my god, like this person was doing this thing and that and that and that. And so like you know, I've been interested in getting to wedding photography, and I've been actually chatting to Ian about this kind of way of going, because you know I would love to just work as a wedding photographer where I am operating just purely as like this candid guy who doesn't really look for these moments that you would typically get from weddings. It would be these things that, you know, people would look back on in 50 years and always laugh and always just be like, oh, that's a memory right there, you know. It's about the memory that's important. And I believe Martin Parr really loved the series. I believe this, like, Ian kind of popped off getting more jobs because Martin Parr gave him like a shout out about it. And that's also the power of shout outs. Like, I'm nowhere near like Martin Parr, I never will be. But it's just like, I think just like having a platform where I'm able to kind of just give people other photographers to see, it just kind of builds that network. And then you never know, the right person might find your work and then be like, holy shit, like, you know, I want to hit you up for like gallery exhibitions, etc. So yeah, so I think just like shout outs in general are just like kind of really nice to have in the community, etc. All right, Paulina Washington. She is a fashion photographer from I'm not. I think she's from Melbourne. Oh, she might be from the States, I believe. Oh, sorry, Saint Petersburg. Sorry. She's a very proficient fashion photographer, abstract kind of art photographer. She's always doing weird creative shit with her subjects, and this one's no different. I have no idea how she's shot this. I don't know what the fuck it is, but I love it. I think it's a fantastic image, and the way the eye just perfectly lines up in the middle of this kind of stream of water or liquid kind of texture. And yeah, I just think it's a really dope shot, and Paulina's kind of just, you know, if you're ever looking for like kind of colourful, you know, bright neon, psychedelic kind of imagery, Paulina is definitely the gal for you. All right, we got 10 more images left, guys. We're almost done. It's almost done. And then we're almost soon to get to our final 5. So let's kick it out and see how we go. So now the next one is from Clem McNabb. This was found for me at the APA Awards, the Australian Photography Awards. This was in the student category, and I really liked it. I thought it was really fantastic. It's a very powerful, emotional shoot of these two couples. And I'll just quickly read the synopsis. So this is the Everyday We Spoke Of, is a body of work created predominantly while I was in the USA, and this is a collection that centers on the queer mundane, a weekly hormone injection shot turns still life, and embrace a portrait of self-consolation, the subject's hand on the back of their neck. A reverence for gesture and tenderness is the core of my work, and a reverence of the queer community documented throughout. It is in conversation with queer personnel archives through history, and these photos create an archive of a self and community within inherently changing bodies. It asks in its care to reshape clinical narratives of transformation and offer a letter to the trans queer present to a self and community in flux. And it's a love letter to her friends, basically. So yeah, it's just a very, emotionally raw and honest kind of depiction of her internal feelings of her identity and her relationship with her friends, and how it kind of is utilized through this kind of decision to shoot in the corner of a room, rather than like your traditional behind like a flat wall, and the way they're kind of composed and hugging, kind of like despite them being in this corner of the room, they're like in it together, and they're kind of like embracing, the struggles. And yeah, I think the black and white works really well. It's a very kind of grainy and dirty frame to kind of add to this kind of raw emotion that she's going for. Yeah, Clem's work's fantastic, and it definitely deserved to be on that APA Awards. Next up's Nikola Blagojevic. I think I probably fucked that up. Sorry, Nikola. Yeah, he's a street photographer from Sydney. Super talented guy. I met him at a workshop, Jesse Marley's workshop, and it was quite interesting because, I like to work quite rapidly, kind of going about getting shots like kind of very spontaneously. But when I saw Nikola work, he's very more like, he's more precise. He takes his time more. He looks for the little little smaller things in the scenes and stuff. So a lot of his work is more kind of like object based and abstract based. And this one is something that I really love. I just love that like he found this kind of skeleton that's like just hanging out on the fence here. Kind of but it's funny because it's not really like showing, like it doesn't look like scary. It looks like quirky and funny and kind of welcoming in a way, like someone just like watching like cows like move about or something. And I don't know, the skeleton just looks fascinated, and I don't know, it just feels like the skeleton and Nikola have this kind of bond that he's taking a photo of. But I like it. He's got a great eye to find strange things or patterns around. It's kind of similar to like Naja, who I mentioned yesterday. So yeah, great stuff. Grace Allen, sorry, I probably should have given a content warning for this one. Might give a content warning, just give you a heads up. This one is another one from uni, and I just think it's a really good photo of kind of the female body. It's a bit confronting, and it's got kind of like intense nature to its portrait work, but I think it's just a really interesting shot depicting kind of the female menstruation, just based off how like the colors kind of contrast really harshly against each other, and the blood feels very kind of like intensely what's the word, kind of uninviting or intrusive. It's kind of like creating such a separation between what we are seeing on the subject regarding to its like outfit, and then there's this blood that just kind of sticks out and reveals itself so much more profoundly than it. And I just think it's a really powerful shot for me, and it takes a lot of courage to kind of express this stuff visually, and I think it works really well, and I think that Grace will be doing some really killer stuff next year at uni. Nick Walker. Nick Walker is a photojournalist / like editorial photographer. He's done a lot of fantastic doco projects around, and this one's kind of like, he kind of documents these people in a town in Victoria that's like really into their mullets. I believe it's for it's for like a mullet festum, who's an artist, so it's a musician. And yeah, and he's just kind of following the family around. And then this one with Paul and Bo Kurikuri, I just think it's a really great shot of just this like father son dynamic. You know, it signifies like the Australian kind of outback culture, but it reveals the warmth of like a loving family, and just like how it will never be broken no matter what. And I think Nick's done a really great job with to create this kind of tone that evokes something else that you don't usually get with family photos. And I think just the way their eyes and their emotion kind of reflect this kind of warmth and unconditional love, it works for me a lot, and it's a really powerful thing. All right, and this is our last honorable mention shot is Jess Brower's work from her Instagram, and she is such a sweetheart. She's such a lovely fashion photographer, portrait photographer. I've only just met her recently, helping her out on some shoots at Alt House, just up the road in Collingwood. And yeah, she's lovely. She's great. She's a great photographer. She works with Matt Stott, who I mentioned yesterday. And yeah, and this one in particular is just a really great shot for me. I'd love to figure out if it is all just like frames within frames within frames. But either way, like the hair that kind of flings upwards like this, and just like the demeanor of the model, just got this real bad bitch energy. Super cool. This is the kind of photo I'd love to like hang up on my wall, because it's just got this kind of like masquerade, you know, cabaret feeling to it that, you know, you can imagine seeing at like really fancy hotels, or, you know, nice like theater shows, etc. So I like this one, Jess, and happy birthday from yesterday. All right, our final five. Final five. All right, let's go. Let's kick ass. All right, so this one is from Starry Kong. I mentioned her yesterday. She is from Melbourne. She is similar to some other abstract surrealist photographers that I've seen throughout this list. This one is insanely interesting. I really find just the hand combining with this kind of luscious green grass plus this dust flying in the air. It evokes some deep feeling of liminal kind of space, but also a beautiful like whimsy of another life. You know, I feel just like this image exists in a time like thousands of years in the future, where we discover like elements of humanity, and this arm is just like this piece of nature that kind of exists within within the natural state, you know. And I just think that Starry really has like kind of built a perfect kind of repertoire of building frames that make me feel like I'm in a different world, and it makes it feel like, you know, it's okay to explore this place, and it's okay to kind of reflect on our human presence before. So I love the Starry, really great image, excellent stuff. Next up is Harry Papaz. We have another uni student. He is mentioned beforehand on the first day. This one I really love. I think this one is his best for sure. It's so simple, but there's so much for me to get out of, and I just feel like that it just smells and feels like it's from another time. You know, I love the way her dress and her feet and the stool is perfectly lined up in this perfect straight line, and I have no idea what this is about. I have no idea like what might happen or what this is going for, like in the sense of like why she's up on the stool, but I have this like it's just like this sad kind of melancholic dread to what I'm looking at, and just having that dress like present itself like that makes me feel like it is from a different time with different types of sensibilities in the period. And I just think it just is a really excellent type of tone setter for the image. It's so simple. I like, you know, people think really great shots are the ones that are most visually complex, but this feels thematically complex to me. This asks a lot of questions. I wonder what's going on. There's atmosphere, there's tension, there's feeling of kind of dread involved with it. And yeah, I think, it's just a fantastic shot, Harry, and you should be really proud of this one because it's always stuck out to me. Next up is Jesse Lehman. Jesse mostly works in film. He's mostly like a cinematographer, camera assistant, although he does do photography. He's a very talented director, so he does a lot of stuff in the creative space. But then this photo is just brilliant. I love it. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic, simple shot of a horse, but every single detail of this frame is just marvelous to look at. And I just love how you framed it. I love how it's been presented in this extremely vibrant kind of color palette. Every single thing feels like kind of like perfect in its presentation. And having this horse look at the lens is also just the best way to kind of have this profile, because if it was just looking away, I don't think it would have had as much of the effect, even though it is still like a stunning image. This was like out in the backlands of Australia. And yeah, it's just a great image. And also like the horse is so beautiful. Like it's such a odd thing to see this white horse in this open field. It feels like it's like those like runaway horses that, are mystical and like unicorn shit, So yeah, I love this shot, Jesse, and I love seeing you around whenever you're out working and whatnot. All right, number 2, we have Mark Davidson. Mark is always in the top of every list, so Mark, this should be no surprise for you. This one is just very interesting. It's a very just cool street shot. You have such an affinity for abstraction, and this feeling of kind of like entering the mind of subjectivity in this dark way. I just really love how this looks, in the sense of we have only this floating head with these lights that kind of act around like a crown or thorns, like kind of hanging about this person's head. I have no idea how you did this, and I don't want to really know, because I want this to be yours and I want this to just be the way you've done this thing. And I fucking love it. There's just so much mood to it. It's so dramatic. It feels like I'm looking at something that is like deeply personal, and it just kind of comes out of your knack for straight, Mark. And so yeah, I think this is a well-deserved image, and I really love everything that looks at it. All right, ready for number 1, everyone? Ready for the final shots. We've done a lot. We've gone through 150 photos, which has been very fun. And I'd also like to just mention as well, everyone, that if I did accidentally not put some people on this list, it's not that I didn't like the images. There was just only so many photos that I could do. I could only do my 150, and mostly I reckon the people I have forgotten I've forgotten about. So if anyone mentions that they weren't on the list, just let me know, and I will definitely make sure to give you a heads up for next time, etc., because I'm sure I've forgotten people. So yeah, apologies, but I love you all, and I hope that this has been a very fun few days of just kind of watching me talk shit about images. And yeah, hopefully I'll probably do this next year as well, if you guys dig it, etc. So yeah, let's kick ass with our number 1 spot. So number 1 goes to Diego Fidel, or Fidel. I think it's Diego Fidel. I got his name right this time, so yeah, I fucked up his name last time, which is like embarrassing, because you want to make sure you get the name correct. So this image, he showed this to me recently. He's had it up for a bit, but he showed me this, and this is my favorite photo of the year, I reckon. So the context, it was taken at Lyman in eastern Ukraine. It's a city that was previously occupied by Russians and liberated during the Ukrainian counter-offensive. And it was shelled daily since its liberation by Russian forces, and people were forced to live often underground without basic amenities. So I really love this shot. This shot's fantastic because, similar to like Todd's work and Matt's work, like we have this building where only this light shows the interior, but this added context of the Ukraine war has so many layers of meaning to what I'm looking at. It implies like refuge, implies kind of maybe some sort of like danger, it implies like loneliness, it implies like putting yourself out on the map when you should be more quiet and secret. So there's like this dread. The fact that he's so far away taking this photo feels like more of like this like observer, where maybe we're not supposed to look here, or maybe like he shouldn't have turned on that light, etc. For etc. So yeah, Diego's photo was freaking. It's really powerful. I love the simplicity of it, but I love just how, you know, all these things with like the damage building and just the desaturated nature, but then this little light that adds this glow. It has so many interpretations for it. You could go into it with a more optimistic perspective, or you could go in with a more of a dreading, horrific kind of perspective. And I just think that Diego is a very just incredibly talented photojournalist, and I definitely look up to him for work and stuff. So yeah, so congrats, Diego. As said, these images aren't really ranked like counting down and stuff. They're just purely just like my favorite images and whatnot. But yeah, either way, it's like this is probably one of my favorites of the year for sure. And I think that, you know, there's so much other great work that I missed out on this year that I would love to check up on. And then yeah, for next year should hopefully be just as great and stuff. So yeah, so that's it, everyone. We did it. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I really do appreciate you having the time to watch me talk about images for a few hours. And, you know, I hope that some people got some good stuff out of it, like found out about some good photographers. And yeah, I appreciate all the kind words and the support for this. It's been really nice to see people liking that I did just like a little roundabout review of people that I enjoyed. So yeah, so I might wrap this up. If anyone wants to mention anything, just let me know. But yeah, I will share the winners in the next half hour, and then I will share the honorable mentions tomorrow morning. So once again, thanks everyone, and I'm looking forward to seeing your work for next year. Cool. So ciao. Thanks everyone.